Locked in the heated battle of exploration, France and Spain and England were racing across the globe, exploring new territories, seizing resources, and asserting imperial control. This is the story of one of those expeditions, one the Crown saw as just another move on the board. But unknowingly, it would mark the beginning of a new empire, a journey filled with ambition, despair, starvation, and gut-wrenching horrors. Life was far from easy in this settlement, but these men and women persevered through it all and changed the course of history forever. This is the real story of Jamestown, the first successful English colony in North America. The year is 1606. England is looking to establish colonies in North America for many reasons, including economic, strategic, and political. Spain had established territory in South America, the Caribbean islands, and what is today Florida. During this, they extracted valuable resources like gold, silver, tobacco, sugar, and spices. Back in Europe, England was facing a massive population boom from 1550 to 1610, which exacerbated poverty levels in the lower class. Agriculture was still the primary driver of the economy, and early forms of industrial production were starting to become present. England was laying the groundwork for economic expansion, but hadn't reached the growth phase yet. So, in April, King James I of England granted a charter to the Virginia Company of London, authorizing them to establish a colony in North America. This allowed the Crown to establish territory there, which would be used to sell manufactured goods to in the future, and also took the initial financial burden off of them and put it on the joint stock company. By December 20th of that same year, men left London aboard 3 ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery. They would sail for 128 days before reaching the coast of Virginia on April 26th of 1607, casting anchor in a place they named Cape Henry, in honor of Henry Frederick, the eldest son of King James. That same night, they reportedly had their first encounter with the natives. While on an initial exploration of Chesapeake Bay, George Percy, an explorer, author, and future president of Jamestown, and his companions were attacked by natives who jumped aboard their boat. 2 men were badly hurt before the natives were driven off. May 14th, 1607, Captain Edward Maria Wingfield, who had been elected president of the council the day prior, decided to settle the colony on the island of Jamestown. Wingfield was a key figure in making the colonizing project possible. Captain John Smith, in his memoirs, wrote that Wingfield was one of the earliest investors and one of 4 beneficiaries of the charter granted to the Virginia Company. The site was chosen mainly for strategic advantages, though it would soon reveal numerous problems. 6 days later, a group of natives from the Paspahegh tribe brought a deer to the settlers and feasted with them. Unfortunately, just 6 days after that, approximately 200 natives from the same tribe, along with the Powhatan Confederacy, attacked the settlement, leaving 4 settlers dead and 11 wounded. Several Powhatan were also killed in the process. Fearing more attacks, Wingfield ordered the rationing of supplies. Over the next few weeks, fighting would continue until the settlers finished fortifying Jamestown on June 15th, when a ceasefire was called. By August, the settlers experienced the harsh environmental realities of their chosen site. The summer drought had destroyed crops, and daily food rations were reduced to wheat infested with maggots and half a pint of half-boiled water. The marshy environment bred mosquitoes, bringing with them diseases like malaria. The brackish water, a mix of fresh and salt water, was unsafe to drink, and human waste contaminated the water supply, spreading illnesses like dysentery and typhoid fever. That August alone saw the death of 13 men, including explorer Bartholomew Gosnold, a major promoter of the Jamestown project who had commanded the Godspeed. Wingfield, as the leader during this devastating time, was blamed for the food shortages and native attacks. He was arrested and removed from his position as president. John Ratcliffe was elected in his place, but struggled with the same challenges. While searching for food, John Smith, sailor, writer, and eventual president, was attacked, along with 2 companions, by natives. The two men were killed, and Smith was captured by Opachansano, younger brother of the Powhatan leader. He was taken to a nearby village and held for 19 days. The details of this episode remain debated, but according to Smith, he was about to be executed when Pocahontas, the young daughter of Chief Powhatan, intervened and saved his life. On January 7th of 1608, a fire destroyed all the houses in the Jamestown fort. Just days earlier, Captain Christopher Newport had arrived with 60 settlers, making the loss even more devastating. With no clothes or shelter, the settlers were forced to live in the charred remains of the fort. Newport and Smith negotiated trade with the natives, exchanging brass beads for food. Although trade with the natives was productive for a time, they simply could not produce enough to sustain both themselves and the settlers. Famine remained a looming threat. Over the next few months, the colony received about 40 new settlers and began rebuilding the fort. By September 10th, however, fewer than 50 survivors remained. John Smith was elected president, and on September 29th, 70 new colonists arrived, including the first two women, Mrs. Forrest and Anne Burris. Winter of 1610 became known as the starving time, a phrase recorded by George Percy, who had taken over as president after Smith was injured. The colony faced unimaginable horrors. Percy wrote of settlers resorting to eating rats, snakes, boiled roots, and ultimately, human corpses. He writes, "Famine beginning to look ghastly and pale in every face, that nothing was spared to maintain life and to do those things which seem incredible, as to dig up dead corpses out of graves and to eat them. And some have licked up the blood which has fallen from their weak fellows. And among the rest this was most lamentable, that one of our colony murdered his wife, ripped the child out of her womb, and threw it into the river, and after chopped the mother in pieces and salted her for his food." Simultaneously, tensions with the natives escalated. Powhatan warriors killed anyone who ventured outside the fort. By May, Captain Newport returned with 140 settlers and found only 60 survivors remaining from the original 490 recorded in the autumn of 1609. Percy's leadership was widely criticized, and he was replaced by Thomas West, known as Baron de la Warr. Just a month later, with over 500 settlers dead, Lieutenant Governor Gates decided to abandon Jamestown. As the settlers departed, they encountered de la Warr, who ordered them to return. The colony, against all odds, endured. Planning to take seriously the threat posed by the natives, de la Warr built two forts at the mouth of the James River, began reconstruction of Jamestown, and issued an ultimatum to the Powhatan. When no response came, he sent George Percy with 70 men to attack. They killed over 70 natives, burning homes and cornfields. That particular tribe abandoned the area permanently. In 1611, de la Warr fell ill with malaria and was replaced. Despite new settlements, the colony barely survived. It produced little and remained dependent on the natives. In 1612, John Rolfe, who would later marry Pocahontas, began cultivating tobacco using seeds smuggled from the West Indies. Spain held a monopoly on quality tobacco at the time, but Rolfe's persistence paid off. In June 1614, he exported Virginia's first successful crop. That same year, he married Pocahontas, with Chief Powhatan's blessing. They settled at Varina Farms. Their union marked the beginning of 8 peaceful years with the natives and gave the settlers space to expand. Rolfe's innovations also marked the beginning of slavery in Jamestown. In 1619, the first Africans arrived. Some would later gain freedom and property, but this event set a precedent for future practices in the colony. Encouraged by Pocahontas's reassurances, settlers and investors became optimistic. In 1618, the start of a large migration of settlers began. Over 5 years, Jamestown's population grew from 400 to 1,240. The headright system promised settlers 50 acres of land, drawing many to the colony. Expansion reignited tensions with the Powhatan Confederacy. On March 22, 1622, the Indian Massacre occurred. Powhatan warriors launched coordinated attacks on 31 settlements, killing 347 of the 1,240 settlers. The Second Anglo-Powhatan War followed, lasting a decade. Combined with the Virginia Company's financial failures, the massacre led the Crown to revoke the company's charter. In June 1624, Virginia became a royal colony. Though the king maintained self-governance, England's focus remained on profiting from tobacco. Conflict with the Powhatan continued until war resumed in 1644. Jamestown did not begin with glory. It began with desperation, with hardship, with loss, but it survived. Its endurance changed the trajectory of history. It marked the first permanent foothold of England in the New World, a beachhead that, despite famine, war, and near abandonment, paved the way for what would become 13 colonies, a revolution, and eventually a new nation. It also forged the beginnings of tobacco-based economies, democratic assemblies like the House of Burgesses, and the earliest structures of English governance in America. These early seeds, sown in blood and fire, would shape the foundation of British America. This was not the end of the story, only the beginning. What Jamestown started would ripple through the centuries. A continent was changed forever, and it all began here,